Hey guys, Dan here with Joe, aka Merlin.
Sometimes.
From the Merlin channel.
That's correct.
Merlin the Mighty.
Merlin the Mighty, yes.
Yeah, lots of good stuff on there. And
Thank
we
you.
talk about movies a lot.
Movies, comics, anime,
Everything,
pretty
really.
pretty much nerdy pop culture stuff. It's all there.
But your new segment is Joe Loves Movies.
Yeah, I've been doing.
And each one tackles a different movie that you love, which is great.
I do about one of those a month, and it's actually been a year I've been doing them.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, it was like August last year when I started. So
okay.
How about that? It's already been a year of Joe Loves Movies.
And so I love that. And occasionally you may end up doing a Disney movie at some point. We don't know.
You know,
because some of these you've loved.
There are a couple of my favorites are Disney.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll get to them before we get to them at the rate we're going.
I guess that's true.
But to be honest, I don't know. Into next year, I've got next couple plans, so we'll see.
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
Let's find out if Joe loves Peter Pan. This is the latest one on our Dan Does Disney, one of my segments on my channel.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
No bias at all.
Yeah, well,
no, I really do enjoy doing them. They're fun.
To watch these old ones is always interesting. You are doing all the real major animated releases, and then our buddy Tim does sort of the side ones. And something that's interesting, there's like some documentaries coming up, some early 50s Disney documentaries.
Oh.
And we were like, man, I don't know if we're going to do these, this and that. But the first one up won an Oscar for like best documentary. So I was like, we got to track this down. Apparently it's on Disney+.
Oh, there you go.
God bless those people. So, but of course they have all the animated classics on there. So Peter Pan you can watch right on Disney+ as well. But we're going to talk about this film, a little bit about the history. You'll take over and talk about the plot and some of the themes, and then we'll go back and forth, and then we'll close, of course, as we do, where I'll review this here, Blu-ray and DVD. Some of these I don't have on Blu-ray. Sometimes I've bought them just on the DVD, but this one I didn't have when the Blu-ray started coming out, so I have that. The whole kit and caboodle there.
Nice.
With that. So this came out in 1953, $4 million budget. Pretty big at the time, really, especially for animated.
Believe it.
But it made $7 million just in the initial run. So big hit for Disney.
Good success.
And it stands now around $87 million with all the re-releases. And that's just the theatrical take. That
just theatrical.
Doesn't count the home video and stuff like that.
I'm sure it's big. It's Peter Pan.
Very big.
Yeah.
And we'll talk actually a little bit later, too, about the legacy of the movie, about all the different iterations, the theme park rides, all of that kind of stuff.
Okay.
All based on this movie. So this was released in theaters, like I said, originally 53, then 58, 69, 76, 82, which I saw it in theaters in 82, and then 89 as well.
Oh, okay.
And I remember the 82 so well because it was my little brother's first movie. He was born in 79, so he would have been 2 or 3, depending on what month they released it. And he was petrified at some of the things going on in this movie. So my mom took him out to the lobby, leaving me, who was 5, and my brother, who was 6, just in the theater to watch the rest of the movie. Because in 1982, that's what people did. And so I remember that very clearly in my life.
Interesting.
But so this was a big passion project for Walt, as a lot of these early movies were. He saw a road company performance of the play, because of course this is based on the J.M. Barrie book back in the day. So he saw a road production of the play and then ended up playing Peter himself in a school version of his own. And so he wanted to do this for a long time. In fact, this was in the works in the late 30s. They were working on Snow White, and he was like, let's also do Peter Pan. Let's maybe make that the second one, whatever. But the reason it took so long is because he wanted to really be able to animate things properly. So he waited a good decade before even starting production, until the animation was a little more slick, especially for things like the flying scenes and whatnot. And so it didn't go into production until 49, which is long after a lot of these other ones had been released. But he was doing at the same time Cinderella and Alice in Wonderland, the last two that we reviewed. So in 1939 he got the screen rights, but Fleischer Studios was in like this bidding war. Fleischer is big on some of the early cartoons. They did, I think, some of the Woody Woodpeckers and stuff like that. Maybe Felix the Cat as well. But there was also a live action rights that was owned by Paramount. And so he had thought maybe about doing live action at one point, but he scrapped that pretty early on. Our good friend Mary Blair, who worked on Cinderella and the animation there, we talked about her being one of the few female animators at Disney at the time. She worked on this one. And this is also the last movie in which all of the 9 old men worked.
Okay.
So there's been a few that like 7 of them worked on or 8 of them worked on. This one was the last one that all 9 of the old men worked on.
So it's the last of the original classic team, really?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so.
Yeah.
I mean, there was one guy that didn't work on the next 2, so I don't know if he went on sabbatical. I don't know if he... And none of them ended up like quitting. Like they were all there for a long, long time. But maybe he was working on some of the other stuff, maybe shorts. I don't know.
Okay.
But like 101 Dalmatians has 8 of the 9, for example. But so this is interesting because it's one of the first times Peter was actually portrayed by a boy.
Really?
Yes, because in the old productions, like, and I knew this from growing up because they were old, like they would run on TV. But in like the 40s, there was this gal, Mary Martin, that played Peter in the play version.
Huh.
And then Sandy Duncan did a version of it as well. That was like a TV version, I think, in the 50s or 60s. But mostly it was like girls with like real short blonde hair playing Peter.
Which one is the one? It was a live action one. Was it from the 50s?
Yes, probably. That would have been probably in the 50s would have been Mary Martin.
Because I think that's one of the more famous ones. And
yes,
I know that's the woman.
Yeah, her and Sandy Duncan are the 2 real famous Peter Pans.
Okay.
And Sandy Duncan's still alive.
I thought that was the one time that happened, but it makes sense.
Yeah, that was like sort of the staple. So they got a boy, and I didn't realize this until, because I couldn't tell by the voice, but the boy that it is Bobby Driscoll, who fans of Dan Does Disney will know from So Dear to My Heart and Treasure Island, and you'll know him as the boy in Song of the South.
How unfortunate.
So, he's, well,
we'll talk.
Around. Yeah, I was going to say, we'll talk maybe about his
history
with Disney
lineup, yeah.
But yeah, so it was not only a boy, but a boy that people knew, at least in the time. And then Catherine Beaumont voices Wendy, and she voiced Alice.
I was like, I recognize that voice.
So she was working on actually both at the same time. The big issues here with the animators were the weightless characters. They weren't sure how to animate someone that really had because of course people didn't go to the moon yet, so they didn't know about the gravity thing. Yeah, so that was a big animation issue there. And this is another classic where Walt had people do the live action stuff and sort of animate around them.
Okay.
So the music dates back to the early 40s here. They had several different people and iterations working on the music. There was a bunch of music in the early 40s, never got used. Mid 40s, never got used, and then later 40s and early 50s is when we heard most of the music. And we talked about this last time, that the one song from Alice that got scrapped became the second start of the right song in this. So that's basically where we're at with Walt and this movie. This was another big passion project for him. Another book that he grew up with the play. And really had his heart set on doing this for a long time.
I think that just learning about that, like I knew that he obviously appreciated the stories, but I didn't know there was so much of a personal connection with a lot of them.
Yeah.
It's like a storyteller telling tribute to other storytellers.
Yeah, it really is.
Art to art, it's interesting.
And as movies came about, I think the ones that we know of from the early days of film, the first 30, 40 years of cinema,
novels and
which
stuff.
is where we're having, is from,
literature
Frankenstein, Les Mis,
we can have images now.
Right,
that's
to these
true.
stories that we already love.
That's true.
I was surprised at how many versions of Alice there was, beforehand. He did the Alice comedies and stuff, and then Tim and I recently did, wasn't Treasure Island? Oh, Robin Hood.
Yeah.
I was surprised at just how many Robin Hoods there had been other than the Errol Flynn version.
Even before that.
Before the Disney version.
Popular, man.
So we take these books and just keep cranking them out. And this was, but nobody had done, except Walt, full-length features. So these were the first times, certainly there were, Looney Tunes shorts and Popeye shorts and stuff that pulled from, obviously, different books and plays and stuff, but for feature-length animation, Walt was the only game in town, so he took the ones he really, that meant something to him.
Try to elevate them and capture as much as he can.
So let's talk about the movie itself. I think people know the story.
Yeah, like you give me a lot of easy synopses lately. Honestly, if you don't know the story of Peter Pan,
it's pretty classic.
The Darlings, they're a nice little family, but the parents, particularly the father, isn't happy with Wendy and George and Michael talking about Peter Pan and, similar theme to Alice in Wonderland, caring too much about imagination and nonsense, silliness. Got to grow up. She's got to move out of the nursery, but it turns out, of course...
Sort of a common theme, by the way, with Disney.
Yeah.
Mary Poppins comes to mind immediately.
It's like, oh yes, gotta be, supercalifragilistic once in a while.
Yeah, and Mr. Baxter didn't care for it.
No, very, very similar character, actually. Similar theme. It's kind of like one of the big themes of the movie.
Well, we've seen a lot. Alice, too. I was going to say, Alice had that same theme.
Very similar theme to Alice, which I'm sure we'll talk about, how well it works one way or the other. But basically, of course, Peter Pan's real, takes them off to Never Never Land, and thinks he can find it first, meet the Lost Boys, and we can just have fun, But Wendy's like, I don't know, maybe this isn't so great. We should kind of, relax. We got to get home to our parents at some point.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you got to worry about Captain Hook, and Shmi, and you got the crocodile that is going after Captain Hook.
Yeah.
And Hook's got...
That was the part that my brother couldn't take, the crocodile.
Oh, well,
that was too intense.
A lot of suspense for that, a lot of tension. Yeah. And, of course, Hook wants revenge on Peter Pan for taking off his hand. Yeah. Pretty classic, and doesn't know what to do. And, well, of course, Tinkerbell gets a little jealous of Wendy and Pan's affection for her, so finds out that she's been banished because she tries to kill Wendy.
Yep.
We'll get into that a little bit later. And Hook tries to use that to his advantage to turn her against him. And that's kind of the plot. So you'll have to watch it if you don't know how it resolves. But that's it.
And and we've seen it, more recently, obviously, with the Hook movie.
What you mean?
With
that's
Robin Williams, which I guess is a prequel to this, right?
Actually,
because I only saw it the one time.
Oh, you've got to watch it.
But I think it's a prequel.
Hook is actually a sort of sequel to this movie and the story in general.
Oh, I thought it was a prequel. Okay.
Well, it has segments of before time, but it's about Peter Pan decided to leave and grow up and forgot who he was. Things are going on, and
I should watch it again because it's been
honestly.
I didn't see it when it first came out. It's been probably 15 years since I've seen it.
It's a good movie. It's a bit divisive, but I'd have to watch it again too. But I recommend it. Watch it again. Very good movie.
And then we've seen it with, what are the other things we've seen it with?
The one with Hugh Jackman with Nirvana.
Oh, that's right. Oh, God.
Pan or whatever.
Oh, Pan. That movie stinks.
I think there was another live action like in the early 2000s.
I think there was another recent
Disney
one,
again, I think.
That might have been Disney too, yeah.
There's been a couple versions.
But yeah, Pan with Hugh Jackman, the little boy, and then
Once Upon a Time,
Rooney Mara, and then of course Once Upon a Time does all of them, yeah.
So yeah, there's been he's gotten around, but I don't know if anything's ever been quite as iconic as this one, though I would argue...
Very classic.
In some ways, Hook has sort of surpassed it, but it's not an exact recreation, so...
Right.
But, it's interesting thinking about this movie, watching it again. I knew that Peter Pan, obviously, is a pretty popular story preceding this, but I feel like this really does encapsulate the story of Peter Pan and what it's about. And
well, yes, Walt wanted to make sure that this was very close to the story people knew.
And it seems like... It would be. Like, when I think of Peter Pan, it is the first thing I think of.
Yeah.
So,
Finding Neverland is it's not about Peter Pan, but it's about Jane Barry.
Yeah.
So it has a lot of, the same themes.
So Pan's definitely got some, obviously some elements in the culture that are well known. I mean...
Yeah, some legacy items.
And, I think the whole theme of kind of imagination and growing up and the pros and cons of it, I think is very interesting, and the whole Peter Pan complex... I think
it's very classic.
Classic.
Michael Jackson's estate was called Neverland.
Yeah,
because he didn't want to grow up.
And honestly, watching the movie, I definitely saw that was definitely explored a lot in the movie.
A lot.
And also, I was kind of wondering, okay, is this going to be something where, we completely embrace that? But no, there is kind of a pretty quick moral throughout the whole thing.
It's very dark.
And that's the thing. I got a lot of thoughts about it, Dan. So I kind of want to use.
Was this the darkest of the animated ones that we've seen? Because certainly Alice in Wonderland was weird and trippy, but was it as dark as this? I would say absolutely not.
This was.
I think Pinocchio,
scary,
and Dumbo are two. Snow White is dark, but it's so early in the Disney canon that it's like.
All right.
I don't know. It's a little dark, but you got the Seven Dwarves, and they're funny, and they do the songs and stuff. I think I think this and Pinocchio are probably the two darkest. Dumbo is also up there.
Well, all right. This is one of the things I was thinking about that I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
And this is a question I wanted to ask you. I think oftentimes we talked about, even when we're talking about various movies, about how dark certain things are for kids.
Right.
And there's the whole Don Bluth theory that I pretty much agreed with, is that you can show kids a lot of dark, complex, heavy stuff. As long as there's a happy ending, it's usually fine. I think that's generally the case. Now, Disney are masters of kind of having stuff for both adults and kids, generally.
Yeah.
And there's always been the jokes like when we
and
eventually...
Pixar has picked up on that.
And Pixar as well. I think it's great storytelling. You don't have to talk down to kids.
Right.
But we'll talk about it more as we get to some of the later ones and how they struggle with that. And we always joke about, Notre Dame is pretty much the darkest thing ever.
Darkest movie I've ever seen.
But in a weird way, though, Disney's kind of always had that, just in different ways. Like, think about Snow White, kind of dark.
Bambi.
Bambi's heavy.
Yeah,
Dumbo was sad.
Heavy. Yeah.
And, so they're all kind of there. But this one, I wanted to ask your feelings on it, because I feel like the other day we were watching Witches, I think, for our drinking game, and you're thinking, this is kind of dark for a kid's movie, but I wonder if it is.
I thought Witches was pretty dark.
But I don't want to pick your brain on that, because this...
And Casper I thought was dark. We did Casper a different week, and I'd never seen Casper.
And I love that.
The Christina Ricci movie. And I thought that was very dark.
And I think that's interesting,
for a PG movie.
Determining what is suitable for kids or not, especially with a lot of things I watched as a kid that have become my favorite.
You watched like Braveheart, at 6 here, so
and I loved
maybe
it.
you're not the demo.
Maybe I'm not, but I'm not alone.
But at the same time, maybe I was too sheltered.
You didn't have a lot of violence in your house.
I didn't have any. Yeah, we didn't have any violence. But we did watch. We went to see this when I was little. We watched Pinocchio.
All right.
So there was some dark.
So with this one, I feel like in terms of tone, it's not the scariest, but in terms of actual danger and literal,
like literal peril,
like talking about like pirates trying to like decapitate people, trying to run them through, and the crocodile trying to swallow people, and probably the most jarring that I'm like, the Tinkerbell and the mermaids casually try to murder Wendy, and I'm like, this is violent.
I didn't remember that at all.
I'm like,
I did not remember that
I was
at all.
like taken back, like this really, like this is. Wow, this is okay. I'm talking about drowning kids.
Right.
Okay, wow. And so I really was not sure how to feel about that. Like I understood that it was kind of like Captain Hook. It's a little more comical, but that was like, I think that kind of drives home the theme of sometimes you have to be responsible, and that's why Wendy's there.
Right.
As kind of the one voice of reason in this whole thing. And so it's like, that's why there's peril for her. And I'm like, maybe that's driving that home. That's why that was there.
I mean,
maybe.
I could definitely see that.
I'm just like, was that extreme?
An idea. But I agree. I think this is the darkest in terms of genuine
peril,
abject peril
for the kids.
Although Pinocchio, though, I think as well has a lot.
The whale,
because of the whale,
the slave driver.
Mm-hmm. I think Pinocchio had a lot of that, which we'll note, was a long time before this, 13, 14 years. So Walt did a lot of movies after that were, like Dumbo was sad, like we said, but Dumbo wasn't...
Trying to kill the elephant.
It wasn't necessarily fear, it was just depressing and,
It was sad.
It was sad, but in a very different... thematically way than this.
Like, that was heavy, that was sad, but it wasn't scary or dark like Snow White or definitely Pinocchio.
Or Pinocchio. And Bambi, same thing. It's like Bambi is definitely sad.
It had some intense
The mom
moments.
died, very sad.
With the forest on fire.
It was intense for sure, but not... That was like the first half of the movie. Then the second half of the movie was like completely different, which I thought was weird. But Bambi I am a little divisive on. But this was... genuine, like
the kids are being attacked by pirates.
Here's how I feel about that.
Okay.
I feel, look, obviously this was from a different time.
Maybe they didn't care.
Well, here's the thing. At the time, kids went to see whatever was playing, right? Now the ratings I think existed by this point, but these movies in the 30s and 40s, when it was either the Hays Code or pre-code, where there was nothing. Kids would go see gangster movies, and kids would go see, all of these things that were maybe not, like, you wouldn't show your kid Angels with Dirty Faces now, but back then it was playing in the 30s and 40s, and it was a mob movie, and they didn't care. So, but there's also, like, I think I think there's a way to split the
All right.
difference. I think kids' movies are too soft now
Okay,
in many
and
ways.
that's what I wanted to ask you because that's one thing I like because I know we'll talk about it more with these movies.
Yeah.
But like for instance, I'll use Hunchback again.
Yeah.
That was one of the ones who said, "Whoa, Disney, what are you doing?" And we get that every the last couple
But
of
even
decades.
more recent, I think Toy Story 3 is the best, most recent example of like.
Did people think that was too much?
Oh yeah.
Okay, well, do you think we're becoming a little too, I don't know,
Desensitized?
Or
sensitive?
Hypersensitive.
Hypersensitive,
Like thinking that our
okay.
kids can't. Like, are we being too retractable about that?
Well, okay. I'll give you another
a
recent
lot of the
example.
great movies aren't like
I'll
that.
give you a recent example of a live action movie.
Okay.
I thought The House with the Clock in Its Walls, for a PG movie geared towards kids and families, was terrifying.
Okay.
If I took my 8-year-old nephew to that, I think he might have been 7 at the time it came out. I mean, forget it. It would have been nightmare inducing. Now granted, I think he's a little too sensitive, but I think there's, but it's in the same vein as Casper and the Witches. Like, is it any more?
Like some people might say, no, it's
You
fine,
know.
but I will agree. It's pretty dark. Like I was watching, thinking, okay, this isn't really for kids, but kids could probably watch it and get something out of it.
I think there's definitely morals here.
That's what I'm saying. There's morals for kids.
I think almost every Disney movie that we've covered, maybe not so much of the ones Tim and I have covered, but I think all the ones you and I have covered, the animated classics, I think for the most part, unless it's like Fantasia, all have some sort of moral.
Yeah.
Except maybe Snow White. I don't know what the moral is there. Be good or something.
Yeah, the
Good
triumphs over evil. Pretty basic.
Pretty
I guess.
basic, but I mean, I think most of the other ones, especially the recent ones, Cinderella, Alice, have some sort of moral.
And I kind of thought it was an
compass,
interesting moral in this one, and it kind of echoed Alice a bit in a slightly different way. And I kind of thought it was an interesting one.
Yeah, it's interesting that this and Alice were back to back for Walt because it really
It's like a similar.
They both have similar themes regarding
Imagination,
and
up.
youth. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So I don't know if we've answered your question.
I don't
just talked about.
No,
for 10 minutes,
well, that's fine. Well, I think that it's hard to determine. I guess. I mean, every parent is different. And,
and everybody grew up on this movie.
Yeah,
and Pinocchio,
and
the other one. So
yeah, I grew up with the two, and it's yeah. So I was.
I'll tell you one that I feel like is pretty dark that I grew up on, and I think it is Don Bluth, is The Secret of Nymph. We watched that constantly when I was a kid.
Well,
I feel like that was dark, right?
That's a perfect example of a really dark movie for kids that was dark, but it's considered such a great classic today because it was a great movie for kids that was dark and handled it well.
Yeah.
So.
And at the same time, I think Disney was getting away from that.
And that's
because they were doing like the Mouse Detective and the Rescuers and like stuff that wasn't.
And eventually we'll get into
we'll
how
talk about
Don
that
Bluth heard that
years,
and
but
dark. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So what else can we talk about with this movie before we get to the big elephant?
Well, all right. I'll throw some positives out there.
Okay.
I'll throw some positives. Okay. All right. I'll be honest. When I was watching it, I was thinking, okay, what are some animation aspects that would stand out? You mentioned the flying.
I do think, especially after watching the commentaries and stuff, and really thinking back about the flightless scenes, the way that the kids were animated when they were, in that world. I do think that was definitely a cut above things we'd seen.
That particular thing was good.
And Tinkerbell.
But Tinkerbell.
I really liked the animation of Tinkerbell. I liked the constant glow. I thought that must have been probably pretty intricate to hand draw.
That was cool. Tinkerbell was cool. Those aren't the two things I was thinking of, though.
Okay, tell me.
The two pieces of animation that stood out to me that were very different from what we've seen before.
Fight scenes?
Close.
Because I did like some of those as well.
The fight scenes, okay, one of them,
Okay.
The shadow. The sequence with the shadow.
Okay.
Yeah. That was very cool and fluid. That was different. I liked the shadow sequence where he catches the shadow. And also, I guess, in relation to the fight scenes, but specifically the way they animated and had fun expressing emotion with the faces. Particularly Captain Hook.
Okay.
I thought they did a really good job of a lot of cartoony, over-the-top, exaggerative things, but contorting in ways I don't think we'd seen in a film like
I
this.
suppose that's probably true. Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't have seen it in Pinocchio.
They're more
too soon.
pseudo-realistic kind of.
Well, and the faces of Tinkerbell. I mean, Tinkerbell is a mute
She's
character,
very expressive.
so you have to express everything through her face.
And she tells the anger so well.
Yeah.
Her pouting and whatnot. So that was good. That was a positive.
Okay. How about the songs? I think the songs were okay.
The songs were okay. I think, surprisingly, Can Fly was not one that I thought was that catchy.
I kind of liked it.
It was fine. Following the Leader got stuck in my head.
Yeah.
And Pirate's Life was okay. And Second Star was alright. And there's the other one was actually the most catchy one for me, but we'll talk about it later.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm thinking of another one that was alright. But I can't remember it now, so that probably says something.
Alright.
Oh, Never Smile on a Crocodile.
Yeah, that's cute.
You know,
I think
there's some memorable ones that were catchy.
I think these songs are more cutesy than they are. Like when I think of the Oscar nominated, When You Wish Upon a Star, or like the real classic
operatic, more emotion.
Yeah, maybe the Snow White, the Dwarf song. I enjoyed the Cinderella songs. You know that.
There were some good Cinderella songs.
I think this and Alice in Wonderland are more cutesy.
They're more cutesy.
I think
ditties.
Maybe they're ditties. They're little ditties. I think maybe
they're catchy.
They're catchy, but
they're not a lot of gusto. They're not very complicated.
Yes, and the other thing that is sticking out to me.
Okay.
Is and I think this changes sooner than later.
Okay.
But the style of the songs has been the same pretty much throughout between the animation classics and the vignette movies that Tim and I watched.
Mm-hmm.
It's been very like sort of 40s, that big booming ballroom, Bing Crosby, Andrews Sisters,
bunch of vocals.
Yes,
not exactly
not classical music like Bach, but like classical,
the 30s, 40s,
vocal
driven,
yes,
kind of pre-Frank Sinatra. I'll be honest with you, not my favorite.
Well, I would say like Frank Sinatra era though,
but it's like a little. It's his style.
Here's the thing: we're about 2 years away from rock and roll, Elvis, all that. Now I'm sure it's not in Disney movies immediately, but like when you think of even Mary Poppins, which is mid '60s,
mm-hmm.
The style in the Mary Poppins songs is completely different from the ditties that are here, and in Cinderella and in Alice in Wonderland and stuff like that. I'm getting kind of honestly tired of this style.
I'm just saying that
of music, the whole like sing-songy
I'll be honest, a couple of those ones, I'm like, I know these are the main songs, but they're kind of making me sleepy.
Right.
I don't really like them that much.
Right, and
they're all right.
And I'm curious as to how long after the birth of rock and roll we will change the speed a little bit of the music in the movies, because I bet it's not right away.
Well, I can tell you right now, I mean, my memory may fail me, but I do remember very clearly, I think, when rock and roll makes an appearance, and it's not going to be for a while.
Is that right?
To my knowledge, no.
Not even necessarily rock and roll, but just like a style different from the easy listening, sing-songy, 40 vocal groups.
Big band.
Big band kind of stuff. Because Mary Poppins is not
Fly
like
me
that.
to the moon.
Yes.
Peter Pan.
Exactly. It was like that style. And to be honest,
it's not even jazz. Can we get some jazz in here or something? Like, I don't know. Something.
Yeah. In fact, one of the great songs.
Fantasia was classical.
Yes, Fantasia was classical. That was different. Yeah. That unheard of Nutcracker Suite.
That obscure little ditty.
Here's an obscure song.
Hope you'll like it.
God, can you imagine? Can you imagine the Nutcracker being obscure?
No.
Like it's so ubiquitous.
World. Yeah.
But. No, one of the songs Tim and I loved the most in one of the package films, I think it might have been Make My Music,
mm-hmm.
was this like real swinging cats kind of like. It reminded both of us actually of like Archie and like that kind of style.
Cool.
So it was more like swing and stuff than this kind of sing-songy thing.
Yeah.
And I would have liked to have seen more of that. I don't know why Walt. I guess. stick with what you know or whatever.
Probably grew up with that, so he's comfortable. I was actually
Right.
thinking when I was listening to it, this reminds me a little bit of like Pinocchio still.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
15 years later.
Like this is now 15 years of the same exact style of music all throughout your movies.
Maybe, did they have the same composers and stuff working on it, same team? Maybe?
No, because I might have said that, but like Peter Pan, I said, like there were 3 different people entirely that worked on these pieces of music.
And Alice had a lot of different people too.
So, so I don't know.
Huh.
So the music for me wasn't a huge selling point. I liked some of the songs. But I think you're right. The catchiest song in the movie is in the most problematic scene.
We're going to get to it. I want to save that till...
Yeah, I think that's the last thing
I'm trying to
dissect.
roll... I want to roll interesting things. And
what else are the positives? I mean, look, the story's great.
Story's pretty good.
The story's great.
I really want to talk about... All right, I'm going to talk about a couple... All right.
Tell me all about it.
I don't... All right.
Okay.
Well...
Here we go.
No. All right. Captain Hook is very interesting to me.
Okay.
Because when I think about iconic Disney villains, he's definitely iconic, but he's never really ranked as like one of the most interesting, complex, evil, threatening.
Right.
And he's not. He's more comical. But he's kind of like... Throughout most of the movie, he's incompetent because his main villain is, his main enemy is a young boy who can fly. That's his main advantage.
Yeah.
That's kind of the joke, I guess. But he's also kind of clever when it needs to be. He can pit people against each other, which was different, which is something we'll see in later Disney movies.
Right.
So I thought that was interesting. I think his chemistry with Smee is great.
Well, Smee is...
Your buddy.
My buddy. I love that character.
That voice actor. He's great.
So, okay.
What's that guy's name?
At first, I actually thought it was what's-his-face, Sterling Holloway, who does Winnie the Pooh.
No, I think it's a different guy.
But it's not. Because, hold on, I'll tell you. Because I did have to look this up. So
was he the White Rabbit?
Yes, he was the White Rabbit.
Yeah. I like that guy.
What's his name here?
Oh dear, oh my.
Bill Thompson.
That guy's good.
So, yes, Bill Thompson does Mr. Smee. Oh, here's why we know Bill Thompson the most. Droopy the dog, a non-Disney entity, but he does. He does the Droopy voice. One of our favorite of the 40s and 50s cartoons.
We did not watch enough of those cartoons when we were doing.
No,
I love the Droopy.
whole series. We should watch
Droopy sometime. I like Droopy.
So he does Droopy famously. But yes, he was the White Rabbit in the last film.
Oh, also, I guess lumping this in with Smee and the pirates. Some of the darkest humor, like when he just kills that one guy for suggesting they go off to sea.
Yeah, let's talk about the humor in the movie.
Dark.
Very dark.
So, pirates dark.
Very dark.
The trying to murder Wendy possibly
do
dark.
you think maybe this was the funniest of the ones we've seen so far?
It's definitely the most comedic. I mean,
I would say it's the most comedic.
I don't want to say I thought it was the most funny consistently. Mostly just with Hook and Smee.
Yeah.
That was where
I'm trying
most
to
of the
think,
was.
I don't know, Pinocchio was kind of funny. Snow White was pretty funny with the dwarves.
The dwarves were pretty good.
Specifically Dopey and stuff.
You're right. I guess I always
Snow White
think about
was very funny.
the with a heavier dramatic
stand
out to me.
Alice was funny in
parts.
Certainly the Mad Hatter scene is funny.
Queen.
The Queen has some jokes. Personally, I find you were talking about the villainous nature of Dr. Hook.
Dr. Hook.
Mr. Hook.
The clown.
You're right.
You next time.
I think the main early Disney villains, like the Disney villain classics that we think of today, would include men and women.
True.
But all the men are mostly from the Renaissance and forward. True. The Lion King, the Beast, Jafar. But here we've seen so far, the evil stepmother in Cinderella, the evil queen in Snow White, the Queen of Hearts in Alice, we'll get to it soon, but 101 Dalmatians, Cruella de Vil. Mm-hmm. Mostly they're females. We've seen a couple of guys here and there, but not many.
Stromboli, I guess.
Stromboli, and pretty much all the people in Pinocchio that are bad.
Bambi, it's man. The human race, I guess.
Human race, yes, is man. But women too, are part of the human race. I know. In 1941, probably not, but but yeah, I mean, most of the early Disney villains, Maleficent. We'll get to Sleeping Beauty soon.
So
So I think it's interesting that here we have a man, obviously, but he is
kind of
he's more like
silly.
He's silly, kind of.
He's
it's a dark movie, but he's silly.
He's the midlife crisis, but he's kind of hilarious to watch.
Yeah,
because it's great. Like some of the best comedy comes from like, oh yeah, he finally came to his senses and he's just completely misread. He wants him to let go of Peter Pan. We let go of it. Let's move on. He's obsessed.
It's actually funny you mentioned Dr. Claw. From Inspector Gadget, because it is almost the same thing of like he's
too good for
focused in on this one person
who's probably not even
he's not even on his radar, and he's inept. He turns out to be rather inept.
It's kind of funny.
So
I like Captain Hook.
So he's a funny villain.
He's funny, but he's not one of my favorites. He never has
he's not
been.
one of mine.
He's I liked him, but I understand why he doesn't usually come up in conversations too much because he's not that imposing.
How about Peter? I liked Peter Pan a lot.
I guess you'll have to explain that to me.
Why I like him?
I've never really liked the Peter Pan.
Why not?
Because he's an annoying brat, and I guess that's the point. He's kind of. I don't know. You don't think so?
Yes, he's annoying, but I don't know. He's designed that way. I don't know. He
is he a perfect teenager stuck not wanting to grow up?
I don't know. Yes,
I guess so. But I mean, all right. Look, I'll say this. I guess I could see how some people could find him charming.
I can sympathize.
Okay, I'm sure everyone can.
Right.
But I thought he was not the most likable throughout it. I'm glad he has an arc.
Yeah.
And grows up a little bit.
He does.
Which is the point.
Right.
But you
hate him.
No. He just wasn't my favorite part of the movie.
Okay.
I was definitely more Hook and
Your favorite part was the Indian.
Can you guess who my favorite character was in the movie? Actually,
I would say
it might surprise you. It surprised me. It really surprised me because I'll give you a clue. Here you go, Dan.
Okay.
This I don't.
Because I have a guess.
I'll be surprised if you guess it because I did not think this.
Really?
Believe me.
Okay.
This character was one that I did not ever care about at all growing up.
Okay.
Probably wouldn't have thought of this person, but watching it again, maybe because I'm different now and I have different sensibilities.
The dad?
Dad was great.
Okay.
Dad had some great. He had some of the best comedy.
I actually think the dad is not bad.
Dad's not bad.
Even though
he has a good arc too.
He has a good arc. He his whole thing about don't be silly.
Mr. Banks.
He's Mr. Banks, and that goes against everything that I believe in. But and I do like Peter Pan, but I didn't mind him.
No.
He had some good lines.
No, Peter Pan's fine. No,
but I mean, I'm saying the dad.
Oh, the dad's good.
I like Peter Pan, so I shouldn't like the dad. But
you can relate to both.
But I can relate to both on different levels.
But as a kid, I thought the dad had one of the funniest parts.
My real favorite is probably Smee, though. I think everyone could see that.
Smee's probably the funniest. But no.
Is it one of the kids?
Yeah.
Is it my favorite?
I don't know.
The littlest boy?
Michael's adorable.
He's my favorite of the kids.
Mm-hmm.
It's this middle one, though.
No, it's not George.
No, it's the girl?
Wendy.
Oh.
I actually really liked Wendy.
Is that right?
I thought her reaction to the thing and trying to be the one person, trying to be grown up.
She was she was trying to be the voice of reason.
And something about her, as the only person that understood how much peril they were all in, was kind of great.
Here's
I was surprised.
Here's why I didn't necessarily glom onto her.
Okay.
Because in the Simpsons lore, Lisa is I can't say she's my least favorite character on the show, but I just find her episodes to be the most bland for the most part. She's very Lisa Simpson-esque. She's really trying.
But
she's
it works.
The voice of reason. Yeah, it works for the movie for sure.
And I think there's just something about that was very likable. Actually, I did. I really liked her.
I could see that.
And I'll be honest with you. I think another thing that made her really stand out to me was the fact she was played by Alice, and Alice was not really that interesting. Yes. And she gave a much better performance.
That's true. I do think her performance here is much better.
She's a much more interesting character than Alice was.
She's written better for sure.
So I was like, that was like night and day for me.
Okay.
So that really stood out. But besides that, in terms
what about Tinkerbell? I mean, you talked briefly about her, but
Tinkerbell is probably like one of the best things about the movie in terms of the expression, 3D animation, the glow you mentioned.
Yeah. But the character, let's focus on her as a character.
As a character.
Yeah. Because I get the sense you hate her.
I remember.
You hate her and Peter, I think.
I remembered. Well, this is the thing about the Peter Pan in like pop culture is kind of seen as very problematic, and the movie kind of goes into that a little bit. Tinkerbell, if I took it on this movie alone, maybe it's because she's naive and she lives in Neverland. She's basically a kid too, I guess.
Right.
She tries to kill Wendy. She tries to straight up murder Wendy. No, Dan. You're like is that adorable?
No, it's not adorable. It's not adorable.
It's like she's intense.
She's intense.
She's intense, and I like that.
This whole movie's intense.
That's what I'm saying, and I was just surprised by how intense this movie was, and I liked it.
Okay.
But I didn't know if I liked the characters that much in it. I guess maybe I'm I don't know. Maybe I'm just not thinking of it as Neverland, but it just seems like, wow, we're being told that no, this is pretty dangerous.
Right.
You know, and that's I was relating a lot to Wendy with this.
Okay.
I really was, because there's a lot of intense stuff happening, and
well, you're not wrong. I mean, Wendy is the voice of reason, and and as constant peril
escalate, you know, Peter realizes, wow, you know, this is a bit much.
Yeah. Okay.
With the bomb and everything, you know.
All right.
Blowing to smithereens.
Yes.
So I'm guessing you were all fine with Peter Pan. Great, no problems with that character at all.
No, I can't say.
All right. Here, no. Peter Pan's fine for what he. Okay, here's the thing. I get it. Okay. I get what the movie's about. I get what Peter Pan is.
Okay. But.
And I can relate to the idea of Peter Pan for sure, of course.
But you relate much more to the adults and the logic.
The rest,
the logical figures.
Like the moral of the story, I was like, okay, I'm getting this. Like, kids are gonna go in and watch this. Yes, you know. As a kid, of course, going to Neverland, be a kid.
Yep.
Pirates, mermaids,
Classic.
Flying. It's all great, but you know, watching it as an adult, I can see the moral more clearly and the story they're trying to tell, and I think it's actually smarter than I ever thought it was before.
Okay, so you think it goes over kids' heads?
Kind of. I like to think I was pretty insightful, but I never really got that at all.
Yeah, I definitely didn't either.
I thought this was a cool adventure.
I don't think we watched this one very much because of my little brother's reaction, so I don't remember this being
this was
something I watched all the time, but certainly I didn't remember all of those aspects of it when I watched it the other day.
Never really been one of my favorites, to be honest. When I think about all of them, it's just not. But so it's a lot of the ones.
It is. Wow.
No.
Okay.
Here's the thing. I feel like you think I love this movie.
No, I definitely know that you don't. You've had many problems with it so far. More problems than I have.
I'm very interested. It's a very interesting movie. I think it's like I said, the moral is very interesting, and I think there's a lot of cool things in it. But when we talk, a lot of the classic Disney movies, I remember telling you, I thought were scary. I didn't really relate to them. I thought they were too sad, intense, and I kind of gravitated more to the Disney Renaissance stuff, which I hung on to even as a kid.
Well, which makes sense because I grew up. I mean, that's when you were a little kid when that came out.
But I watched a lot of these at the same time. So
everybody does.
So that's not really an excuse. So, but the thing is, going back, most of the ones we've watched, I've been like, wow, this.
You got a completely different perspective.
I like it a lot more than I did as a kid. This one, I appreciate it more as I did as a kid, but I don't. It's not like, oh man, I love it now.
Well, it's funny. Other than Cinderella, I don't think we've really hit on any that are like
super
mind-blowing great. I really liked Cinderella a lot more than I thought I would.
Cinderella was the one I always said is my least favorite. I'm like, I never care about it.
And now,
I was like,
what a lie.
It's really good movie. Absolutely.
So of the ones now, I know, other than the couple of recent ones, it's been a while since you and I have even done one. But I'm including even like the Ichabod and Mr. Toad, because I did that with Tim. But that counts as like a Disney classic.
Yeah, people think that's pretty iconic.
But like I like Cinderella way better than that. These are
all right.
Classics, I guess, because it was the only game in town at the time. But
would they like when you hold them up against everything else?
To me, like okay, here's my.
We're not done talking about it yet.
No, we're not done talking about it. Obviously.
Well, here's what it is.
We haven't hit the main thing, but here is the when you hold it up to the mirror of let's say kids movies for the last
20.
Yeah, like 20 years, maybe since 2000, okay? I think of like some of the best, and let's even throw Pixar movies out of the mix.
Sure, that's unfair.
Because it's unfair. they're all great. But like things like How to Train Your Dragon.
Great movie.
Some of the Disney proper stuff has been great. Zootopia. Tangled,
Frozen.
Wreck-It Ralph, some of that stuff.
Oh yeah, Wreck-It Ralph's good, really good.
But I would hold up Pinocchio to those.
Okay, so you think
I would hold
watch
up.
that today is still up there?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, would kids be as entertained by the more simplistic hand-drawn animation? Maybe not.
I hate that argument.
But I hate that argument, so we're not going to talk about it.
Yeah.
But I would hold Snow White up. I would hold Pinocchio up. I would hold Cinderella up, and I would maybe hold Bambi up.
Not Dumbo.
Dumbo's okay.
Okay.
No, I guess I would hold Dumbo
It's
up.
hard. We like them all. You're right. They still work today.
My point is, all of the original, like 3 or 4, are just... We grade them sort of on a curve because they're
for
the
time,
originals.
like,
for the time, the animation's amazing.
Snow White, Pinocchio, animation blows my mind.
So would some of those get an A+ from me if they came out today? No, but would they get an A or an A-? Yeah.
And if you look at it back then, by the standards,
by the standards, A+.
You got a step.
But something like this, or the Alice in Wonderland, or Ichabod and Toad,
they've done better.
To me, this is not cream of the crop.
This isn't at the level of stuff we've seen.
Right. So let's talk about the most problematic part of it.
Before we do that, let me see if I forget anything else.
Okay.
I want to get this out there. If I just trying to see if I don't want to, because this will be a big part.
I know.
The kids. Michael was adorable. Yeah. I thought he was very cute.
Michael was adorable.
And I did really like George a lot more. His trying to be a proper English explorer.
I remember George as being annoying, and I don't think he is.
I think he's good.
Yeah.
You know who I did not like that much? Peter Pan was all right.
Okay.
I didn't like the Lost Boys as a kid. I still find them annoying now.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
They're not really that interesting.
I'll give you that.
They fight. They barely...
Well, I think we might hear in some of the things I found out from the commentary a little bit more about other things.
Okay.
With the Lost Boys.
All right, Dan, I think I'm ready for the actual thing we're going to talk about.
Okay. Now, we have hit the #1 cream of the crop Disney racist with Song of the South.
Yeah.
However...
I don't know.
Oh boy, this is like...
Dan.
This is easily #2. Like, the Crows and Dumbo, we talked about that. They weren't... To us, they weren't racist.
The Crows could be problematic, but like
this is like
you put it. Wow, like there's no
good way to do this.
I'll be honest with you, man.
Tell me.
Like Song of the South was racist.
Do you think this is worse than Song of the South? I would think maybe in certain aspects you could make the case.
I'll be honest.
You could make the case.
Song of the South was trying not to be offensive. This one was trying not to be offensive, but okay. I thought of this. I told you I was thinking about this a lot today.
Yeah.
The whole thing with the Native Americans, or the Indians, as they call them in the film.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, we're taking into account 1950s, and the fact that I don't think that Disney's sensibilities was trying to be racist. I think it was trying to pay them a compliment in a weird way. Obviously, they could outsmart the kids. Even
I can see that.
They call them savages.
Right.
They were in their own way. They were trying to pay homage to the idea of it. I think this is a perfect example, like Song of the South, with a lot of things from this time, especially with Disney, that we might talk about later, even with things like Pocahontas and Mulan, which is a whole other thing, still carries with them. It's the ultimate backhanded compliment.
Right.
Like, trying to show them as cool, have this catchy song, they're badasses.
Best song of the movie.
That's the thing that makes me feel horrible.
Mad. Makes him mad. It's the best song in the movie, and there's not even a question about it.
This is the thing that I actually...
Catchiest?
I'm sorry. Like I actually could not believe this, because this is horrible. And I can't believe I'm going to say this on a show.
Is it worse than Song?
No.
Okay.
No, it's... Okay, what I was thinking about the songs and how they're mostly mediocre, I watched this a couple days ago. You know what's still been in my head?
Yeah, the Native American song.
And I'm trying to catch myself not singing the lyrics out loud.
And
it's
a problematic song.
And I'm like, and I was just thinking, it's not what makes the red man red. It's genetics, where you were like, and I know it's like if they're talking about like the lore and their myths and strength, and it's like
okay,
but like this
that's
was
where I hold on. That's where I agree with you though. That I do think
they weren't trying.
It was made with good
intentions,
and I don't agree necessarily about Song of the South.
Okay. You mean like being you? So you think that was?
I don't think Walt was like, how can we be racist? But like, look, the proof is in the pudding.
They were like
that they were
iffy.
That black rights groups even in the 40s were protesting the release of Song of the South. Like I think that explains the time sensitiveness of either. I'm not saying one is
all right
necessarily that much more racist than the other, but I think. The fact that nobody really seemed to care about this for the longest time.
That's the thing I wanted to bring up.
Nobody cared about this being so racist.
That's why I think it might be worse than Song of the South.
Maybe it is. This is Song of the South at least people know about.
And that's because, I think that Song of the South, and people, feel free to chime in. Obviously, I don't know if I'm the most qualified to talk about it, but just thinking about it, like, historically, from a modern lens, I'm a history buff.
Right.
I think from a modern lens, it's hard to say, but this might be more blatantly racist than Song of the South in retrospect because just think, here's the thing. Stop me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
Please, anybody. And I think this is generally like kind of agreed upon by a lot of people. Slavery was a horrible thing.
Sure.
But if there was one group of people that was screwed over more, it was the Native Americans who were basically wiped out and their culture destroyed.
Right.
And this is like at this time in the 50s, slavery was abolished, civil rights were a thing. Native Americans were still getting screwed over more afterwards and to this day.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree that hold on. I want you to think about something though. Now, maybe it was a little different when you were growing up because you're 10 years younger than me.
Sure.
But when I was a kid, people were still playing Cowboys and Indians.
And as a kid, they still were when I was growing too.
And so, they do they do the whole thing. And
you saw that when I was a kid. It was still acceptable in the consciousness.
So this came out in 1953.
Sure.
And there are scads of kids and family shows from the 50s. Dennis the Menace did it. Leave It to Beaver did it. Where kids are doing the bit and doing the impressions and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, it was very, very popular.
Kids did.
And you're right. And in a way, by that point, by the 50s, obviously, look, it was before segregation and all that stuff. So obviously, the African American experience was still horrible in the 50s.
But Native Americans have kind of always gotten.
The case could certainly be made that we obviously all are here on the Native American land. I'm sitting, right now.
Yeah.
I'm sure in a place that was. So I agree with that. You're right.
Yeah, that's right.
You're right. You're right. We live in Susquehanna Township.
Yep.
So if that doesn't say it all,
they didn't have a happy, experience.
So I agree. I guess from that perspective,
that's the part that
because you're right. At least look, Disney went to bat for the gentleman that played Uncle Remus.
Yeah,
and he got him an honorary Oscar. And I don't think. Look, Song of the South has its problems. We all know it. We talked about it. We did a big, long video about it that many of you have seen. But from a strictly, like...
Something about it bothers me a little more, and I don't know why. It's hard to... It's something about it feels...
It's very interesting.
It feels a little more blatantly racist.
Oh, it's...
it's not quite as... It's up there with the Popeye thing.
Zippity Doo-Dah, we discovered, came from an old Negro spiritual
when they were in the fields,
when they were in the fields and stuff. But you're right. I suppose it would almost be like Uncle Remus singing a song called, "Don't It Feel Good to Be a Slave" or something along those lines.
It's up there, But like I said, they were talking.
It's interesting.
One little thing that I think proves that maybe they weren't trying to be blatantly racist was. Like, in the beginning, they talk about, oh, man, like, when they introduced the tribes, like, oh, watch out for them, they're savages. And at the very least, they got the drop on the Lost Boys.
Right.
And they kind of make friends with them, and they're not perceived as the villains in the movie. That's the pirates who are worse.
Yeah, they're really not.
And to be fair...
I never thought of them as such.
Tiger Lily is not really offensive at all.
Until the 2013 or whatever
when they made her
when they made her white, Rooney Mara.
But I thought that character was fine.
Yeah,
actually, she was quiet, but she seemed
right.
Okay. You know what? Tiger Lily was actually one of my favorite supporting characters in the movie.
Okay,
because it really stood out to me when we're talking about
the dad.
Yes, and talking about animations and subtle expressions. Also, like Tinkerbell, doesn't say anything when Captain Hook has her and is threatening her, trying to say reveal Peter Pan's like secret lair. She's like no, like very defiant to the last.
Right.
You know, and I really like that strong female
that's
role.
Fair.
So it wasn't all bad. Just the men were all the chief and the braves.
It was the most.
It was the best song in the movie. Now
it was the best song in the movie.
They knew that. So that's a weird feeling.
I still can't say this is a more racist film
than
Song of the South.
But the part in and of itself.
Certainly that one scene is probably more racist than any one scene of
Song of the
South, except for the tar baby.
Ugh.
That was pretty rough. I don't know. That's a good question. But why does nobody talk about this?
Because
okay.
All right,
I didn't watch this on Disney Plus, so I don't know if Disney Plus has this intact. But my guess is they do.
I feel like
because usually the wiki will say what cuts have been removed, and I think. Again, I'm wrong. Didn't watch it on Disney Plus. I watched it on my Blu-ray. But even this Blu-ray was only 5 or 6 years old, I think. My guess is Disney Plus has this whole movie intact. Indians and all.
And honestly, Dan, I think I know the answer, and that's because nobody made a big stink about it, because not enough people cared, because Native American representation is so low.
They always get screwed.
They always get screwed. Honestly.
Maybe that's true.
There wasn't enough attention brought to it.
Maybe that's true. But you know what's funny? Is every single person I told
knows about that
we're going to review Peter Pan.
That's the first thing.
I would say I've told in the last week maybe 5, 6 different people, and they all were just like, oh.
And maybe that's why. Maybe
so they know.
People don't want to talk about it.
Maybe.
And that's one thing.
I actually didn't realize. I forgot since it had been 35 plus years probably since I'd seen it.
I remember. I didn't remember the fact that it was the catchiest song in the movie.
Very catchy.
Which is weird.
Very catchy.
And I'm like, well, how do we feel? Yeah. How does that feel to say the best song is what makes the red man red? That's a little weird, isn't it?
Yes, it's not great. I mean,
it's a weird feeling.
Look, people on my channel know this. I'm a gay man, but I feel like yes, if there was a movie, of course they couldn't even talk about people being gay in the 50s. But what makes the queer man queer or something like that? Yes, I would be very offended by that, I suppose.
But in retrospect, you were trying to be open-minded.
But in the 50s, they couldn't even talk about that. So
that's how bad it was.
That wouldn't even be a song until at least the 80s at the minimum.
Maybe later.
In a cartoon, probably not till 2010. But either way. But yeah, you're right. I
think that's what it is.
If I was a Native American
and I saw this, I'd be so offended.
I would be very offended by that.
Like if I had like a Native American friend and we were randomly at Peter Pan, I would be like, You'd be like, oh my god, I'm so sorry that existed. I didn't even know. I might be like, oh shit, I'm sure there'd be a conversation.
Right.
I curse on your channel, but I think this is serious. I'm sorry.
You did.
I'm sorry.
You corrected yourself earlier.
Yeah, I did.
You turned it into Shaft. Getting the shaft. All right. The point is racist. I think we can all agree with that. We've been on now an hour about Peter Pan, but certainly racist. Best song of the movie, and it's sad to say. But here's the other thing about it. It's the only song in the movie that isn't in that style we were referring to.
That
earlier.
might be why.
I think it's why.
It's a chant, and it is something. I'm guessing they were trying to make it more
catchy.
Native American dance. And that was more interesting than the "Can You Fly."
I do think though that you're on the right track with it was sort of supposed to be complimentary.
It's a backhanded thing.
But I don't think they realized at the time just how
they didn't know
it came across, it would come across later.
It's kind of like the equivalent of maybe when the people working on this didn't think they were racist by doing that. Like this is we'll compliment them, the Indian, the red man, by talking about how great he is. Those Indians. See, you know what I mean? It's like it's actually
No, I'm with you.
I
agree.
There's levels of racism, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was just. they didn't blatantly hate it because they would say, they would either made them villains or not have them in the movie.
Right.
This was them trying to be inclusive, but still unintentionally.
Certainly missing the boat.
Well, they didn't have to. They took it straight to final level.
Okay.
Just from fairy dust.
You're right. All right. So before this turns into the longest of the Disney videos, which is shocking.
I didn't. I told.
You said it would be a talker. I want to at least talk about the DVD and the Blu-ray.
Oh shoot!
Because there's a lot of stuff on here to talk about.
Well, who would have thought this one would be the longest one?
Not me. But it makes sense. I mean, it really...
We really did not want to talk about the racist segment, I guess.
Well...
Is there anything about that in there?
No. Yeah, right.
An apology to all the...
I'm sure. All right, so here we go. So this came out for the first time on VHS in 1990.
Probably why I had it.
Yep. And Laserdisc. Betamax as well. They were making betas in 90.
When are you going to get these Disney Betamaxes down?
No. The one I have to get is the what is it called? The LED... No, LC...
The weird
the
track.
one that plays on the record. I looked, by the way, on eBay, not to go off on too much of a tangent because I already bitched about the time, but I looked on eBay for like lots of them, and you can get like working ones, but here's the problem. The equipment stinks. There's a guy that does these like tech videos, and he has 3 of them that he's gotten off eBay over the years that he's like refurbished. Yeah. They skip. They're horrible.
Dan,
but they're interesting.
I want you to do some segments where you talk about old like formats for things.
I should bust out my Laserdisc player and see if it still works.
The
one I got at the guy was.
You got the Dragon Ball Z movies, man.
Well, I don't know about that, but there's some kind of Japanese something.
You have a couple. I remember.
I
remember.
So it came out in 3 years later in the UK on VHS. Then we had one in '98 and then one in '99 for only 60 days before they put it back in the vault. Yeah.
They're trying to get that money.
Well, I guess so. I don't know what the story was.
Christmas?
2002, they put it out again to coincide with the sequel, The Return to Neverland, I guess it was called.
That was the one.
Right?
Never saw it.
I didn't see it either. Platinum Edition in 2007, and then this one, I have the Diamond Edition, 2013. And then they've even come out with another one for the 65th anniversary in 2018, which is a Blu-ray as well. So... what's nice about these Blu-rays I'm finding is, for the most part, they port over all of the old stuff.
Oh, cool.
So one of the things I was saying about the Alice in Wonderland one was they did like this TV special that I was like, oh man, I really wish they had this on the DVD. My guess is maybe they put it on the next Blu-ray edition. Because this Blu-ray has some interesting things that were not on the DVD. But all the old DVD stuff carried over. There's a handful of songs and music videos. There's a 16-minute making of.
Cool.
There is a Why I Made Peter Pan essay in Walt's words.
Oh, that's cool.
Not read by him, of course, but it was
just like a image.
It's things that he wrote in his diary, and so there's a voiceover. It's not him, but there is a narration of it, which is
cool.
Very cool. Talks about his history with the play and all of that kind of stuff. There's a Tinkerbell featurette for about 8 minutes of the history of the character through all the different iterations, through some of the merchandising line way back from the book. And then the one that was most interesting to me from the DVD stuff was this 21-minute thing called The Peter Pan That Almost Was. And so this is where some of the Disney historians went and sought out some of the stuff from the archives and stuff. And this was some of the stuff from the late 30s that Walt had originally talked about wanting to do. So Nana had a much bigger part.
Oh, the dog.
Yeah. They had her going to Neverland with everybody.
I was surprised
in the original.
I forgot you didn't.
And then we see a big chunk of Neverland before the kids arrive. Oh. So that's when we get some info on the Lost Boys, some of their background. So I don't know if that would have changed your opinion on them, but...
I thought they were kind of annoying, but to be honest, they were barely in the movie, really.
They were. So in this early version, they were in it a lot more, I guess. Mm-hmm. And then there's also the Peter Pan story for 12 minutes. This is the thing that I wish was on Alice in Wonderland as well, because I guess this was pretty standard by this point, that Disney would make like a 10 to 12 minute featurette
like a little doc
about like the history of the book. and now, now we're going to bring it to the big screen and bring it to life. And I still can't figure out who some of these are for. I don't know whether this was for theater owners, for stockholders,
featurettes,
for yeah.
Well, don't they usually put them on like DVDs and stuff?
No, but I mean, this was the original 1952
for
featurette that he created.
Well, that must have been for like a trailer for a movie theater.
I don't know. Yeah, like I don't know if you played it before a movie. I don't know if
TV,
you played it.
Maybe?
That's what I think. Maybe like they would buy advertising time on a TV station. I don't know. I wish there was more context for it, but there it was in 1952. And that included like a history of J.M. Barrie, Disney's connection with the story and all that stuff. And then there's also a commentary track with Roy E. Disney, which is Roy Disney's son, so Walt's nephew. Okay, so that was all from the DVD, and then the Blu-ray features, which are exclusive to this set. There's a couple of deleted scenes, one dating back to the late 30s, which both of those are on Disney Plus. I looked that up. There's a 41-minute featurette about the 9 old men. We've seen now all three, the Cinderella, Alice, and this, have all had different features about the 9 old men.
You like the 9 old men, don't you?
I kind of do. Well, because they were the ones that animated all this. Like we can talk about Walt Disney all day long, but like
the other people,
he oversaw it, but they animated it.
They made this stuff themselves.
Basically, yeah. And so what this one was about was talking with their kids. Because obviously by this point, most of them are dead. But their kids, who are now in their like 40s, 50s, 60s themselves, talked about growing up with them. And, like the one, for example, would hold art classes at the house every week and, teach kids around the neighborhood for free,
That's
how to draw and stuff. It was very interesting. It's, you have to be a true Disney fan, I think, to really appreciate it.
Sounds like some pretty great people put their hearts into this, man.
Yeah. And the other thing I thought was very interesting about this was every time you paused the movie, there was a little like interactive game.
Really?
Yeah, it would have like a little 10-second countdown clock, and there was like a pirates like whack-a-mole type game, and there was a like a shell game kind of thing, and there was a drawing sort of like tutorial. It was very interesting. I never saw anything like it. Like every time I would go to get a drink or go to the bathroom, I'd pause it and there'd be some like game in the background. So
interesting.
Yeah, it would kind of like rotate.
Is that the first one you've seen with this?
That's the first one I've seen like that. Yeah, it was very interesting. So I really liked this DVD and Blu-ray. I thought the features were great. But a lot of originality. Oh, the like Alice in Wonderland. The grade of this is higher than. Yeah, it's a cool cover. It's like I don't know what you'd call it, but it like sticks out.
Oh, it's slightly holographic, kind of.
It's sort of.
Hyper,
yeah.
I
don't know. I forget what you call that. Embossed.
Embossed.
Yeah. So yeah, like Alice in Wonderland, the DVD and Blu-ray for me gets a higher grade than the movie. So I mean, I would give this probably an A.
Wow, you really like that.
Listen, it's so funny that they just have such a vast archive, and I'm glad they're putting it to use. Like some of these other movies have had sort of more bare bones features, and I'm like, I don't know why this is. Like, you guys are obviously, Disney librarians or whatever you'd call them, historians, with a lot of stuff at your disposal. So, but the movie itself, I don't know. What do we think of the movie? I think it's definitely on the lower end, but it's better than Alice in Wonderland.
It's better than Alice in
Wonderland, for sure.
What did we give Alice in Wonderland?
I think we settled on a C+ or a B-. I think it's better than that.
I think I gave Alice in Wonderland B-.
Yeah, I think I talked you down.
You did. I think you did, and I'm okay with that. I think this definitely felt like they're having a stronger story and narrative. There was a moral that was clearer a little bit more than Alice's.
Problematic though, for sure. Not just with the racist stuff,
but even like we said with the violence, the dark humor.
It's very dark.
Like for kids, I wasn't sure how well it all meshed.
Yeah.
But the songs were pretty forgettable.
Songs were very forgettable.
Best one being really racist is kind of that sequence brings it down, of course, a little bit.
I think when we go back through, this is not going to be one of the more memorable ones.
No, honestly, I probably will forget about most of it.
But I think there's definitely good things about it. I think the voice work is great. I think, Bobby Driscoll I've been a little bit hard on lately. I thought he was terrible in Treasure Island, but I thought his
Peter
voice
Pan.
work as Peter was real good.
Yeah.
Good enough that I didn't even recognize him.
Also, before we do grade it, I had a little thing I always wondered about.
Okay.
Has the magic of Neverland changed Peter? Because I know he's supposed to be a boy and never grew up, but he has elfish ears. He's like an elf.
He is sort of like an elf.
No, I always wondered, like, is he supposed to be an elf? Like, is he changed, or was he? Is that ever pop up anywhere?
That's a good question. I always thought of him as a boy.
I know, but he has.
But you're right. He
really
does have elfin ears or whatever.
I always wondered why that was. But I wanted to mention that.
Before we do grade it completely,
okay,
I do want to say about how popular these characters are.
They're so popular.
They, and you mentioned maybe Hook isn't the most popular villain, but like Peter Pan and Tinkerbell themselves,
especially Tinkerbell,
are two of the. Tinkerbell's got to be in the top
as far as
10
Disney
characters for the marketing and stuff.
I think it's because of her sex. I mean, she's
It
very saucy.
And they're ubiquitous at the amusement parks.
Yes.
Disneyland, Disney World. They've been in a bunch of video games. I got to track this board game down. There's a board game from 1953, Disney's Peter Pan, a game of adventure.
Ooh.
I want to see that.
Dan does gaming.
Well, I'll be very honest. Actually, right before COVID happened, I was really thinking about getting Tim and my buddy Melissa, who's also been on the channel sometimes, together to do some game reviews, board game reviews. Well, COVID happened, and then I never even got to approach Tim with the idea. But yeah, it is something I would like, because especially I have a whole handful of TV and movie themed games that I would love to play and try out. So, but anyway, there's the Return to Neverland sequel, and then the Tinkerbell film series, which I forgot all about.
I didn't know that was a thing.
When I was at Hollywood Video, those were real big. And then I didn't realize that the Jake and the Pirates TV show that's on like Disney Toon or Disney XD or something, it's actually called Jake and the Neverland Pirates. So that is another sort of Peter Pan spin-off there. And then, guess what? Live action remake in the works. Your favorite.
Hope it's scene for scene.
This actually is underway. They just started casting before COVID. So just this year, in January, they started casting for things. It's titled Peter Pan and Wendy. And let me tell you who has been considered to play Hook.
Okay.
That have turned it down.
Okay.
Joaquin Phoenix, get him out of here. Adam Driver could be very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Will Smith obviously opted to do the genie, so that's fine. And then currently in talks is Jude Law.
Ooh,
I think he'd be good.
Jude Law.
Here's the other one I'd like to see. A Disney live action favorite. Colin Farrell. Not Will Ferrell. Colin Farrell, after Dumbo, after Banks, he's done like 2 or 3 of these live action Disney ones. I think he'd also be good. But Jude Law would also be good. I could see either one of them.
I could see Jude Law being a very menacing.
And I think Adam Driver would have been great.
Adam Driver would be good too.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So we'll see. That's in the very, very early stages, obviously. But
there you go.
But they're in talks for casting. So let's talk grades about this movie. I think I'm going to give Peter Pan a B.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I'm really tempted to give it a B-.
Don't do it.
But I do think it is better than Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, yeah.
If it didn't have some of the issues...
I think if you took out the racist scene completely...
Oh, it would go up.
It would be like an A-, I think.
Yeah, B+, A-.
I really think that.
I think in terms of the story...
weighs it down.
There's more solid... Like, when I think about Bambi, Pinocchio, there's something more, the emotion conveyed just through the whole experience, the theme, the music, the art. This one doesn't quite have that oomph.
Pinocchio is... comparing it to Pinocchio,
but I'm just saying we have to.
I guess.
I'm just saying we're on that...
I guess I've already compared it to Pinocchio several times.
But just as a reminder, that's just saying...
That's cream of the crop for me.
Yeah,
for me, Pinocchio is the best of these. I mean, I gave Snow White an A+ because it was the first, but Pinocchio is the best for me.
If it wasn't for a couple minor things, and definitely that song, that whole sequence, it'd probably be a B+ for me. Okay. So I'll leave it with a B.
I think a B is a fine grade for this movie.
B's fine. It's good, but Peter Pan's good. Yeah. I would never say Peter Pan is among the great Disneys.
No.
I
agree.
And it's weird because it's iconic like Alice was, and I don't think Alice was...
Is it so iconic, though, because of Tinkerbell mainly, or no? Because like you said, she's the crux of the marketing and all that stuff.
But Peter Pan and Hook is is pretty
Hook,
iconic.
Hook is very iconic as well.
He-
And Peter Pan himself. Yeah, you're
They,
right.
like they have a legacy. People
You're
know
right.
them, but like it's like almost when the general idea becomes iconic, but the actual film, how much do people care about?
Right.
It?
I
One
guess
of
that's
those.
true.
One of those sort of.
Yeah,
things.
it's interesting. I think a B is a fair grade.
Okay, I'm
Right?
okay with the B then.
I like when Dan does Disney, we all try to agree on the grades.
Well,
Me and Tim do the same thing.
Well, no,
We'll
like-
sort of hash it out
Well-
and come up with a
Well,
final
Dan,
grade
look,
for the movie.
it's not
you know?
that. It's not that. It's just like honestly, I haven't really disagreed with you too radically on.
Yeah.
I think we've differed a little, have we? Are we all at the same grade so far?
I think we've all the same grades. Maybe Fantasia. You were higher on Fantasia.
I did like,
than
and I don't know if I.
But
yeah.
But here's the thing: after talking something out for an hour, I think it's easier to get
see the other
on
person's
the same
opinion.
page with somebody.
But yeah,
you know,
I
personally,
I can agree with that grade. Like,
yeah,
I,
it's definitely not among the grades.
Yeah.
And I think of the two that we have coming out now, the next I think 4 or so is going to be me and Tim. We've got that documentary I was telling you about. We've got Rob Roy. We've got 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Ooh, that's a good one.
And then the next one will be Sword in the Rose, which is Walt's attempt at a costume musical.
Huh.
But,
So the next one we'll do.
But the next one we'll do, I think, is Sleeping Beauty. And then shortly after that will be the Dalmatians. So the next two for us are going to be, I know you love Sleeping Beauty.
Spoilers.
I don't remember it too well.
I love Sleeping Beauty, so
I really like the Dalmatians.
You do?
So Cruella de Vil is, as you know, my all-time favorite of the Disney
She
villains.
is?
Oh, yeah.
Oh wow.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well.
And I think that still holds. I mean, I saw Dalmatians the most recently, probably 7 or 8 years ago, when you and me and Justin did like the Disney
villains
classics.
or classics.
And I rewatched a few that I hadn't seen in a long time. Yeah, Cruella de Vil, man, she's pretty. Well, and I think that was cemented by the Glenn Close live action.
That's true.
You know,
it's been a while. I mean, I liked it, but it's been a while. Horace and Jasper.
So I think. Let me look, but I think Sleeping Beauty is next for us, and then after that will be the Dalmatians.
I was
think.
looking ahead at our Disney animated, and I'm like, I know we're going to start getting into some more interesting territory in terms of what maybe we won't. I don't know. But then again, Peter Pan we gave a B to, so I'm like, I don't know, could things be better or worse at this point?
I know you're
I
right.
really don't know.
Yeah, so next is going to be Sword in the Rose, The Living Desert, Rob Roy, The Vanishing Prairie is another documentary, Leagues Under the Sea, Davy Crockett. Oh, and then actually our next one is Lady and the Tramp.
Oh.
Okay, you hate that one.
No.
And then there's like 10 live action ones, and then Sleeping Beauty, then like 15 more live action ones, and then 101 Dalmatians.
Oh wow.
So in the 50s and 60s, mid 50s and on is where Walt really was getting the live action stuff down.
Wow.
So the 60s is like there's one animated for every like 10 live action.
Jeez, I saw that. There aren't that many.
So, but in the 60s is when you have all the comedies. So it's like you've got Herbie and That Darn Cat and the Shaggy Dog and all that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
The silly ones that I grew up with. So.
Gotcha.
All right. Well, look, we've talked a blue streak here. I think we've covered a lot of ground. God bless this movie, but holy God, I would urge Disney Plus to just excise that scene.
Oh, you think they should excise that?
Oh yeah, don't you think? If
No.
they're not even going to run
Hey.
Song of the South,
Oh, that's right, because they.
and they took out the crows and Dumbo.
Yeah, you're right. Then cut that out. Then
I
be
think
consistent.
you should definitely
be consistent.
and this is definitely more racist than the crows. That's for sure.
You know what? Yes, I agree with that. That's
So
what the heck.
I don't know. All right, so that's the show. Merlin, thank you as always for joining.
Mm-hmm.
Next time we'll be back with a Tim review, but Merlin will be joining every Friday for these Freaks and Geeks reviews, which has been going swimmingly. And then we've got a lot of things in the pipeline for later in the year.
Yeah, we do have some interesting things
that we'll get to
in a couple months.
in a couple months. So thanks for watching. Comment below, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.